Right, so in this one, I'm going to show you how to make snowy environments like this, or at least how I approach it. So this is one of the things that confused me a lot when I first started out, because I always wished there was some button you could just click that would make snow perfectly fall on top of objects. Unfortunately, that's not really how it works. But there are some things we can do to easily like add snow to things and make things feel cold and yeah, snowy. So I'll show you how I actually do this in an environment. So here's what we're making. I'm not sure what this looks like yet because I haven't made it yet at the time of recording, but here's what that looks like. And in this video, I'll just show you whatever I did to get there. So let's start. I'm in Blender here, and we have a camera and a cube and a sky texture. The sky texture is just this right here. It comes with Blender, just using these settings. This will actually be a good starting point for our snow environment. I don't know if I'll stick with this in the end, but that's a good starting point. The idea I have in my head is like a snowy plain with like maybe some rocks or hills or something, and then some kind of artifact type thing in the middle. Could be like an archway or a piece of a temple, or maybe a whole temple, or I don't know. But some kind of artifact thing in the middle that's covered in snow, and then like a snowy landscape around it. And I think that'll be a nice, easy, snowy environment to do. So let's start off with a plane, because it's going to be a snowy plane. There we go. Our camera lens is just default for now. I'll change it later. And let's just switch this to object. So let's hit new, and on textures.com I found this texture right here. Just a free texture from textures.com. If you just go on the site and just type in snow, you will find it. So you can get that here. And so let's just drop that onto this. So easy way to import textures. Well, first of all, put it in the asset browser, but I'm kind of lazy and I just use Quixel for most of my textures, but I'm not going to do that in this video. So if you want to just quickly import this, click on the principled, Control-Shift-T with the Node Wrangler add-on, drag any one of these into the Blender file manager. There we go. Select, import, done. And we can just throw on some subdivision. So Control-1 for a subdivision modifier. Let's switch that to simple so it's not curving it, and then throw on adaptive. Make sure in experimental cycles for that to be there. And I can probably turn this up to like 2. The higher the dicing scale, the lower the resolution. So I don't need it that crazy for now. I can always change it later too. Right, so now let's go to the UV editor and just scale this up, because right now this 1080p texture is being applied to this massive thing and like stretching all the way across, so I don't want that. Let's just go into the UV editor and scale this up like this. It's going to be repeating right now. I'll worry about that later. There's some easy tricks to not have it repeat like this, but for now, I'm okay with it repeating. I can deal with it later. Not important. The ambient occlusion didn't get plugged in. Again, that's not really important for now. I'll touch that later. For now, let's turn on the displacement, because you can see it actually imported the displacement map when I press Control-Shift-T, but it's not activated. It's just flat still. So to activate this, 1, adaptive subdivision needs to be on, which it is, and then 2, let's just turn on displacement and bump in the settings here, material settings. And so now it's on, but it's insane. So just let's apply the scale, and there we go. Standard adaptive subdivision setup. If you don't know how to do that, there's other videos. Just type in like Blender, how to use adaptive subdivision or whatever. You'll find videos on that. Easy way to somewhat break up the pattern quickly. Take a noise texture, mix it together with the displacement map, and I could make it like turn it to multiply or whatever, but it's easier to just not deal with that for now. And now it's slightly better. So again, I'll deal with that later. I'll make it like not super obvious that it's repeating, but for now it doesn't really matter. I just want to get the basic layout of things for now. So this texture is 1080p, and if we look at the foreground, this is what that effect is going to give us. If I shade it smooth, it's a little bit better, but it's still like, you know, this is not good over here. In the distance, it's not bad. It looks pretty nice, but up close, especially here, this is very bad. We don't want this. And honestly, the easiest way to deal with that is not some like intricate setup. It's literally just take any object and slap it in the foreground. So some sort of different ground plane or different snow texture, or even duplicate the texture and like just move it closer, except on a smaller scale. There's just plenty of like workarounds for this, but I'm not going to worry about that kind of thing right now, because I just want to get the main idea out, and then I'll refine all these little weird looking things later. Where do I go from here? I don't know. You know what might be cool actually is getting like a sky in the back. So this let's do that. Let's add a sky. Now, I don't have a specific reference photo for like the type of thing I want to do. I just know that I want to do something snowy. You know, if I was going to fully optimize this process, I would go and find an exact, or like sketch out an exact idea of what I want to do, but I just can't be bothered right now, so I'm not going to. And I think it'll be fine without it. But just know that if we want it to be fully optimal, I would do that. Anyways, let's get a sky image on this background. So this will be included in the course soon. I'm not done this yet, but I'll just use one of these. For now, just go to Unsplash and download a free sky from there. Works basically the same. These are just higher resolution. So let's just drop any one of these in. Emission, alpha, maybe not alpha actually, because sky, the background is blue, so maybe that doesn't matter. Let's just take this off. And yeah, so let's just put the camera like there-ish, copy rotation. If you haven't seen my video on making skies, you can watch that. But basically, you just do this, take a picture of a sky like this, and then slap it onto a plane like that, and then put it in the emission, and you know, maybe the base color. And then actually, what I'm kind of feeling like is this type of thing, like I did for this like Elenium art, is the where it's like moody sky, but then sunlight coming through, but not like bright sunlight. It's kind of like this moody, cloudy type sunlight. I don't really know what you call that, but the sky texture is not giving me this effect, so I'm just gonna take that out. And let's replace that with a actual sun lamp. And that way I'll get less reflections from the sky, which usually is a good thing, but in this case, I don't really like it, so I'm gonna not have it. So sun lamp, I'll adjust the strength later, just turn it up like this for now. And I want some like light rays coming through. And I can do that by just adding a plane like this. And then on this plane, just take like a noise texture or something and use that to drive the alpha. Which means that some of it will be transparent and some of it will be opaque, and then that'll like just cast some really interesting shadows on this. So you'll see what I mean in a second if I turn this up. That pattern is going to allow me to have just nice shadows like this, and that looks pretty cool from the camera's point of view. Not this extreme maybe, that's pretty intense, but something like that will be nice. Let's take this up, take this down, and then increase the scale of the noise. But that's not really doing what I want. I'm not going to worry too much about like these little details right now. Okay, let's throw in some volumetrics because that makes everything look better all the time. I don't want it to be so extreme, but something like this will be fine. I want to move the sky back, and then I can't see it anymore, so I just need to turn up to like the render distance of the sky, or the camera, I mean. So here, clip end, just turn that up like this, scale this up. Sometimes it just looks better if you have the sky a bit like further back from the camera, just makes it seem a little bit more realistic. And also I might want to make this bigger so it's casting shadows all the way through to the end. Just make sure this isn't like in the frame, like you can see here. I don't want that in the actual picture, so I'll just kind of rotate it and move it out a little bit. Okay, back to here. This might actually look good now if I run this into the alpha. Let's see if that makes it look better. And then if I adjust the strength, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's not. In this case, I kind of like that. That's pretty cool, actually. Let's see, what else could we do with just... You know what actually might be really sick is having like a massive structure here. So I think I want to do that really quick. Let me just go to my this folder of like fantasy stuff. This is from the pack that I mentioned in the last video, like that comes with the course. Just use whatever models you want, just in case you're wondering, that's where I'm getting this from. So let me take anything, and this might just be a placeholder, I'm not really sure for now, but just anything like this, I'm gonna just chuck that in there. And this would actually be a good point to show you that trick I mentioned of getting like snow to show up on different objects in the right place. And by the right place, I just mean like on the top only. Okay, so here's how you do this. Let's say we have an object with a regular texture on it. Let's just bring this down to demonstrate this. So this is the wrong one, but it's this one. So ignore all this stuff at the top. This is like to add a bit of just extra fluffiness to the texture. Really, it's just a normal map, roughness map, and then a base color, and that's running through like a bit of ambient occlusion stuff. That's not, like, this is not important here at all. Just think of this as like base color, roughness, and normal, like your standard texture setup. And so let me show you like how to deal with this and add a bit of snow. So this line coming into the top here, this is going into, it's kind of hard to tell, but that's going into the base color. So just think of this right here, even though it's all random nodes, it's basically just the same as if I took the base color image and just dragged that straight into the base color socket with some extra fanciness that doesn't really matter for this part. What I want to do is, if I take this out, it actually kind of looks like it's made of just pure snow almost. Not quite, but a little bit. So I want to get that, but just only from like the place where snow would fall and like land on this, or like in the crevices and stuff too. So the way you do that is, we want to have like wherever the faces that are facing the direction of like upwards this way, I want that to be just pure white, and then everything else to be our normal texture. The way you do that, there's actually a very easy way, and it's using a few nodes. One is the separate color node, and I'll explain what this means in a second, but also, what is it, texture coordinates? I always forget until I actually plug in the actual nodes. Yeah, I think it's this. Yes, it is, okay. Let me take a mix node. Instead of float, I'm going to change that to color so I can mix in the color. And I'll just drop this into where the base color is going in here. So we have our standard color, which is this texture. And I'm just going to mix in this case, just white. So just put that on white. Now we have 0 is our regular like rock stone texture. 1 is white. And I want it to be mixing. I want our factor to be so that only like the faces that are facing the top or like facing upwards get this white like snow part on it. And so how you do that is this. If we take the normal node, what this is, normal in this case just means like which direction is each face facing. So depending on how I rotate this, these colors will change based on, I guess I have to apply the rotation. So if I like rotate it this way and apply it, it's going to give me different colors based on the direction that each of these faces is facing, if that makes sense. So I don't actually know that much about normals and how it all works, but that's really all you need to know. Is like normal information is just information about which way is the face facing. So we can use that to tell us, okay, I want the faces that are facing this way to have snow and the other ones not to have snow. So if you notice here, the faces that are facing more upwards, so like this upside here and like all of these faces down here, these are all blue. So right, the faces that, like if I go to like top down, it's mostly blue, and if I go to the other side, there's like mostly not blue. So that means the faces that are facing more upwards are going to have like more blue than the other faces. So we can use that to run into our mix factor here. So if I look at if I run this normal output from the texture coordinate through this separate color node, the separate color node does exactly what it says, just separates out colors. So we run this in here and then output only the red. That means like wherever there was only red before, that's where it's going to show up like white in here. So if I look at this, you can see where like blue is obviously not going to have this. It's going to be like outputting black. And then everywhere else where there was red, or like red was included in that color, it's going to be outputting that. Same with green, like, and then same with blue. So it's just different directions that the faces are facing. So if I output, if we look at like the normal information here, like I said, blue is going to be the faces that are facing mostly upwards. So if I run that through here and then output only the blue, we should get like white mostly on top. If I just look at what that looks like. If I just kind of use our preview here. Okay, so we can use this as our mix factor in short. That was kind of a long way to explain it, but hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to take this blue. So right now it's just this. This blue is going to be our mix factor between white and our regular texture. And then I could like take a noise and mix it in if I want. In fact, maybe let's try that. Let's take a noise texture and like, let's just see what it looks like if I plug this in here. So I'll mix that together, run it into the factor, and let's see if we can get a bit of a nicer result. And I might just crunch this too with a color ramp. So yeah, this is kind of that more like stylized video game type snow, but I actually do kind of like how that looks, so I might run with that. And you know, you can adjust how much of that you want here. And also what's really nice about this is if you have a really strong normal or displacement map, that will actually influence the direction of the normals, and you'll get really intricate results when you do this kind of thing. And it'll start like showing up on the texture itself. I guess it's not here. It might only be with a displacement map. In fact, maybe I can find that and throw it on here and see if it makes a difference. Yeah, this texture right here. So if I take the displacement and then just run that actually into the height, displacement height. So this is for the stone texture, not the snow. But if I run that in there, now, okay, there we go. We're starting to get those really intricate results. So the displacement is actually turned off. So it's running out into the displacement output. But if I look here, the displacement is set to bump only. If I turn displacement on, it kind of messes it up. But if I just leave it off, you just get this effect without worrying about that. And now we actually have some pretty nice, intricate looking, cool results. And I can take the normal map actually back down. So that's kind of cool. And let's just see, I might crank this a little bit harder here too. Oh, that's what's wrong, is the red is going out, so the blue is supposed to be in here. I don't know how that got changed, but there we go. And so let's just look at this. So yeah, something like that. Right, so we want the snow only collecting on like the top part of this. I don't know when that red got changed, but yeah, it's supposed to be blue, it's supposed to be outputting here. I don't know why it got changed, but whatever. So yeah, that's what I want. Like the bottom, rock, middle, rock, and then top, snow. There we go. That's pretty nice. Okay, and like I said, if you just throw the displacement map onto that, like whatever base surface, so not the snow, but whatever other texture you're using, if it's a rock or brick or whatever, like I'm using here, put the displacement map on that in the shader editor. So you just literally take the displacement map, run it through a displaced node, and then run it into this displacement output on the material output here. And then don't turn on don't enable displacement here, so keep it on bump only. It'll still work, but it just won't actually displace it. It'll just like use that information in the normal, so like this. And then that's how you get that extra level of like detail in here. So that's pretty sweet. And I think this is a good place to stop. I don't need to like make this insane. I just need to make it like look somewhat like snow, and then I can kind of go from there. Cool. Make a new copy of this, apply rotation, and then I might just like duplicate this a couple times and make a cooler type thing here. Maybe like duplicate this, scale it by -1, and then just kind of flip it up here. Okay, let's join that, and then now we've got like some big wall type thing, like just a big object I can use. Okay, nice. And then let's just kind of put that here. So that's awesome. I like having like this massive looking effect here. That like the volumetrics helps so much with this. So, look at that. So I kind of want this effect of like these massive, ginormous ruins, and hoping I can get that by just like layering on these models and kind of just duplicating them in the right place. 50 millimeters is a little bit more than I want, so maybe let's do 35, and then obviously I'll have to like adjust the sky here. And I kind of want this like hallway effect of like a place where you could like walk through the center of this on the ground, sort of. So it's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Like I want it to be going up on the sides, and then in the middle, like have a pathway that you could like walk through. And just when I zoomed out, I noticed that that plane that's casting shadows is now back in here, so I'm just gonna take that out. Be very careful, like you do not want this thing in the render. It's gonna basically ruin it, and you will forever regret that, so do not have it in there. Okay, so like I said, I got these models from the course. I'm not like trying to sell this to you. If you don't want to spend money, like don't buy this. This is not for you. But I have other videos on modeling if you want to learn how I made this type of stuff. You can go watch that here. It's free. If you do want to buy these, it comes with the course plus a bunch of other stuff too. I'll just leave a link in the description of where you can find these exact models if you do want to use these exact ones that I'm using here. You don't have to buy mine. Just get whatever ones you want. Just get some models and use them, and look at how much faster we're getting through this and how much cooler it's looking just by chucking in one model and just duplicating it a bunch of times. And let's see, what else can we do to make this feel like snowy and cool? I think a foreground would be nice. So I might just take a plane and let's just chuck that here. And I want this to have this material, so Control L material for link material. And then I also want to take just some tiles. So I'll just take my tiles here. This is just, this is very simple. I have it in here, like in the pack, but it's just literally add some squares and like make some of them like broken. Like, I don't know, go into edit mode and like delete some of the faces and stuff like that, and then extrude it or whatever. I might have used like, you can also use like the OCD add-on, like the free like one-click damage add-on, just to add quick damage to things like this. That could work. I don't want this tile texture on here, but I might just copy the snow setup. So it's just these nodes right here. Ignore this. Just these nodes right here. So the texture coordinates, separate color, mixed with the noise texture into the color ramp into a mix node. Take that, copy, or copy that. And then in this other texture, I'll just paste it in there. Same thing, ignore these. It's not really doing much. So just paste that in there. This is our base color. Run it into slot A. Run this into the base color, and cool. Sweet, and now we've got some like broken tiles. Like I said, it's literally just squares. Just whatever method you want to use to like get a bunch of squares, do that, and you'll get a similar result. It's not anything crazy. Let's just rotate this around, get some variation. Okay, cool. And I might make these smaller. Like these tiles just feel too big and like out of place. So I'm just gonna make this. Let's just scale that by 0.5. And that looks a lot better. Maybe just more of these things is the right move. I think it might be. So honestly, maybe I could just duplicate this up again over itself. And then like just join this together. And then put this on median point. And then there we go. Just have like another piece like that. Or even like duplicate it one more time this way so it's more symmetrical. And then just have like one ginormous piece that's just made out of the same smaller piece duplicated 16 times, which is honestly kind of cool. And then in here, there's kind of a space in the middle, so maybe it'll look cool to just quickly fill it out by adding a big cube, copy the location. I guess I should put the origin to the geometry, and then cube, copy location, so it goes to like the origin point, and then just scale that like this. So it's like just filling out the inside space, and then just Control L material, and then just cube project and take this and like scale it. I guess I should apply scale, unwrap with a cube project. Now scale that up so it's like a bigger thing. And then join that up, and let's just see what that looks like. Okay, so we've kind of made this mega pillar out of these smaller pillars, and it looks kind of cool. So I'm just gonna chuck that in here like this. And you know what might look sick is having it like rotated this way, like just really just a little bit sideways, leaning over. That's super sick. And maybe one over here too. Let's just see what this looks like. So I don't know if it makes sense to have it like this way or this way. It does look kind of cool having it like out this way, because it's just, this kind of flows better if it's like just curving down and then curving back up. I kind of like that, but it doesn't really make that much sense. Like if this one, if you think about this, like if this pillar fell to the left, why would this one like fall to the right? It doesn't really make any sense, but it looks cool, so I'm just gonna run with it. And whatever. It's not like, it's, you know, it's so big that it's not realistic anyways, that I don't really care if it like, you know, the way like some earthquake would have caused this doesn't really make sense, but yeah, it doesn't matter. We're going for like the coolest result, not the most realistic, so I don't really care. That's cool there. That it looks really pretty sick, so just gonna chuck it there. Maybe let's do another one over here. And look how far you can get by just using one model spammed around 100 times. Like, that's pretty crazy. Actually, this image, sorry, not this image plane, but this plane, this shadow casting plane, makes everything feel so much bigger. Just having like those shadows that are just so massive in the distance, it just looks so cool. But yeah, that's nice there. And is there anything else we need in here? I feel like it needs more like something in the middle. I'm just not really sure what, but that would be a good thing to figure out right now. What might also look cool is just using a spotlight for this. So I might just hide the sun for a second and then try a spotlight and see if that looks good. And we're also getting a lot of light from the sky itself, so maybe I don't even need it, but let me throw it in here and just check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then point it like this way. Let's do 50 million. Why not? I'm going to turn the sun for a second just so I can select that exact color. Press Control C, hovering over the color. Put it back into the spot. So I want to be that exact color. And let's just move this into a place that looks cool. That's pretty nice right there. I might just take this down a bit, just to have a bit harsher shadows in there. Looks pretty nice. And let's just take this sky and just turn this down. I might swap this sky for a different one too. Let's just see if another one fits this scene better. Yeah, that fits better. It's just more like evenly distributed clouds, it seems like. So I'll just kind of put that there, duplicate this, and just put it in the foreground a little bit more. So it's just make it smaller. Be careful like duplicating the same object, moving it closer to the camera, and then making that same object smaller, because it can kind of ruin the perception of the sense of scale. Because it's like, oh, this object is this far away and it's this big, but then it's also this far away and it's like a different scale. That kind of messes up your perception of how big things are sometimes, so just watch out. As long as you can't really tell what it is, it's kind of fine doing that. And that really helps, I think, maybe not really helps, but helps a little bit sell the sense of scale, because it's like, if we're contrasting this super dark shadow in the very foreground with like this really light shadow in the background, because like the farther in the distance this stuff gets, like the lighter all these shadows are gonna look. Like it really puts into perspective how far away and how tall this stuff actually is, because of how like dark the close stuff is versus how light the far stuff is, if that makes sense. Really, I think rocks would work better here. So I might just pull some rocks in here. Let's go to the photo scans pack, just take some of those. This thing, just kind of chuck that in here. I don't know why the roughness is looking kind of weird. I might just turn that all the way up for this scene. And just kind of chuck that in there like this. And I might actually just put the same snow setup on here. So just take those snow nodes and then run the base color into slot A, run the result into base color. There we go. Apply scale, apply rotation. And there we go. So just adding random rocks to just make it feel more natural and less, like the more natural stuff and like more stuff with like variation that you can just layer on top of each other. I find that always just makes things look more complex and nice and intricate and natural and just good. What about a bell, like a ginormous bell? I wonder if that would be interesting. And I just want the light to be actually hitting this, so I'll just kind of put it in a place where some light is hitting it at least. I think that just looks really nice. That's pretty cool. I really like that actually. I might want some like ginormous chains in here too. Let's see if I can do that. Okay, so let's take a, what is it called? Torus. Isolate this. Default's good enough. And let's just take these, kind of pull it out this way. It's not really like the perfect shape, but it's gonna be good enough. Doesn't need to be amazing. Let's just take this, select all geometry in edit mode, and then press Alt-S. That'll let you scale it like this, like thickness-wise. So I want these like really quite thick chain links. So I'll just kind of put this here, Alt-D, this over here. I guess we're gonna be like arraying this or joining it, so we can press Shift-D, it doesn't really matter. Just line up this section, rotate 90. In edit mode, I'll just kind of do this really quick. Boom, done. And now, my plan is just take this, make it follow a curve, and then put a texture on and make it huge. So let's just quickly do that. Bezier curve, scale it up, SY0, so it's flat, rotate 90 degrees, and we'll just kind of take this and like flip it this way. So let's just kind of, this one will be like this, and then this one will be like this, and then this will be like arrayed here, like this. So 1 on the Y, 0 on the X. And then I don't want this happening because it's like disconnected. I want this to be like inside like this as best as I can. So just 0.9, like 3.5, that's good enough. Maybe like one more. And then to get this to follow the curve, you just add a curve modifier. So modifier, curve, pick the curve, and then just kind of put it on here. Sometimes you'll have to change the deform axis if it's like rotated weird and like not lining up, but this is fine. So you gotta be careful with like oversized objects like this. Sometimes you just make it huge and it looks huge, and sometimes you make it huge and it just looks like you took a random model and just hit S and like scaled it way up, and it just looks really dumb. So try not to get that look. I don't really know what causes that, but I think just the main thing here is going to be the positioning where I choose to actually place this. Okay, so I added a few more chains. I made them a bit smaller, and let's just shade these smooth. So that's what that looks like. I just duplicated the same thing a few times into positions that seemed like the right place. I might want to try the panoramic lens now. Let me just try it and just see if this actually looks good or not. Maybe let's switch it to, instead of fisheye equisolid, fisheye lens polynomial. And then K1 is the focal length now, and then K2 is the amount of distortion around the edge. So I could just like not go crazy, but have just a little bit of that. That's pretty nice. And I'm probably ready to render this, but I do just want to try out some other camera angles because I feel like it's just not quite there. Okay, so I'm just going with another camera angle here. All I did was just duplicate the camera. I still have the old one, so I haven't like lost that angle. But I'm just gonna do 2 separate renders and have them kind of post them side by side. So anyways, I'm just taking some extra pieces, layering them on top, and like kind of creating a foreground for this section right here. Let me show you what this is before I drop this thing in here. I just took the camera, ignore these platforms here, but this is just floating in space here. It's at 87 millimeters, but just happened to look good, and it's pointing down at this thing instead of like over here where this one is. So it's just a different angle that kind of looks like we're up on some ledge looking at this thing down here. And then I just turned on depth of field, f6.6, looking at focusing on the bell, and then that's just blurring out these like tiles here. And then I'm just chucking in one more piece from the pack just to throw on like some nice railing or some type of thing here. So I'll just see if I can kind of layer this in here a little bit like that, and then maybe just put the same material on so it's snowy. And there we go. And I might just kind of move this along. And I like having this like blurry foreground here. Okay, and let me just go back to my original camera angle and make sure I didn't like mess that up. Just make sure, check on the original, just make sure it's still fine. And it is, looks like, cool. I might just want to add like one of these in the middle, because the middle of this is like very empty seeming. I think it just needs like, yeah, something right there. You know what, that's pretty cool. I think I'm just gonna call it there and just render this and get it done. So let's just turn on depth of field on this one. Focus decently far away. Render settings, 3000 by 3750, 100%. Let's do 512 samples. We've got a little bit of time here to take a break, so I'm just gonna crank it up decently high. Okay, so after a bit of Photoshop, here are the 2 renders that I got from this one. So I just set up 2 separate camera angles, rendered them both, and then just processed them both separately in Photoshop. Yeah, so like I mentioned, if you wanna check out that course plus a bunch of assets, link below, and hopefully this video was useful. I'll see you around, bye.